We are already at the midseason mark. So today is simple. Week 9 starts sit. If you have any questions about your lineup, drop it in the comments. I'll get back to you as quick as I can. Let's start off today's video with a recap from last week. Of course, on the screen, if you see a green strip, we got it right. Red strip, we got it wrong on the year 44 and 18. We're not perfect, but we're pretty good. Let's kick it off here with our weekly defense. It is no doubt about it, the Washington Commanders. They play the New York Giants this weekend. And again, that is kind of self-explanatory. The Giants, they are only averaging about 14 points a game. They are a top 6 matchup for defenses in fantasy this season. The Commanders in this matchup, they only had 7 in week 2, but I think that's the floor. I think we're expecting double-digit points from this defense this upcoming week, again, against the New York Giants. There's not many flaws about them. But let's get into the players here. We're going to start with Jordan Addison, and I think this is a growing trend here in the NFL. If you're a receiver and you're not getting production, complain on Twitter, because then you're going to get involved in the next week's game plan. We saw with Demario Douglas and others earlier in the season, and now the next is Jordan Addison. He tweeted out after last week's game, free 3. Of course, he's talking about himself. That's his number. He wants to be more involved, and rightfully so. He's a first-round wide receiver prospect. He's a very talented wide receiver. The problem, you are on an offense that has Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler, and TJ Hockenson, who is now back in the mix. Regardless, Jordan Addison is likely to be more involved this weekend against the Indianapolis Colts, who give up a lot of big plays, even though they're only the 17th best matchup against wide receivers. For those reasons, we're going to say start Jordan Addison because of his complaining. At the running back position, another player I love, just like Jordan Addison, in Javonte Williams. This is the guy that is still the lead back in an offense that really revolves around him and his production on the ground. He is the running back 15 over the last month, so that is definitely a startable running back. However, last week against Carolina, most people said, hey, start him against Carolina. They're the worst rush defense in the league, but on 14 touches, Javonte Williams only had 44 total rushing yards and I think 50 total yards on the day. Not what you want to see in a favorable matchup from a running back that we all kind of relied on to give us relatively big production. But this week, he's playing Baltimore on the road in Baltimore. Very tough matchup. Baltimore's pissed off. They want to bounce back with a win. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of any of the Denver Broncos this weekend. Moving over to the quarterback position, and this one might be a shock, but C.J. Stroud, we drafted him to be our MVP of our fantasy teams, and this is going to be the first time that I've said this probably since last year in some of the games that he was playing in, but this is where we finally have a question. Do we start him or do we sit him this week, given his circumstance? He is still a top 5 level quarterback in the NFL. That's a good enough reason to start him regardless of his matchup and situation. He is one of the best offensive minds running the offense in Bobby Slowick, right? A guy that's going to be a head coach in the league next year or if not the year after. But the cons here, and this is why a lot of things are against CJ Stroud this weekend. He's down his best 2 wide receivers in Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. He's playing the New York Jets on the road on Thursday Night Football, so short week. Again, down his 2 best wide receivers against the 29th best defense against quarterbacks this year. Of course, the Jets, they're only going to get a healthier and more motivated Hassan Reddick now that he's got his second game under him going into this weekend. So a lot of things are against the Texans here. Down his best 2 wide receivers, tough defense on the road, short week. We're going to sit CJ Stroud. Tua Tagovailoa, a lot of the same can be said here as far as the tough defensive matchup. Now, Tua did have 16 fantasy points last week against the Arizona Cardinals, and hey, we said to start him in his return game. However, he's playing the team that, well, he went out against in week 2 this season. Let's not forget, he had 3 interceptions before his eventual injury, which again kept him out until last week. He's on the road against Buffalo. Tough game, might be a little colder. I guess the only positives here is that his weapons are, home run hitters. But we're going to sit Tua as well. Close it off here. My surprise start of the week, which I always give you guys one. It's going to be Noah Fant. For a tight end position that is so inconsistent, we try and roll with the hot hands as much as we can. Now, Noah Fant down week last week. However, he has had a lot of double-digit point performances over the last month, and he's been a top 15 tight end over the last 3 weeks. And again, that includes last week's, underwhelming performance. but he's playing the Rams this weekend. That's a top two matchup for the tight end position. It's a must-win game for the Seahawks and the Rams, right? Right before the Seahawks bye. But again, divisional matchup, it's a must-win game, especially when you want to make a playoff push. You need this win, so it could be a high-scoring shootout. And this is a guy that is due for a touchdown. 0 on the year, but he has the third most targets on this team in the red zone. So maybe this is the week that he gets one, but at the end of the day, we're going to say start him. It's a gut feeling. But let's get into our Week 9 recap here. Of course, we see our starts on the screen, and if you made it to this point, you get my extra 2 start and sits on the week. We have Amari Cooper as a sit and Cade Otton as a start, as he's a one-man unit there in that Tampa Bay offense at this point in time. And then Amari Cooper, it's just very inconsistent what we're going to get from him on a weekly basis. But again, 44-18 on the year. If you have any questions about your lineup or you just want a second opinion, drop it in the comments. I'm here for you.